I did. At the ripe old age of 18, for purely selfish reasons, I decided that Catholicism wasn't for me. Sunday mornings should be for sleeping in, for reading, for doing nothing. There were other more important things to do for me than going to church. And so I quit. Many years later, I started studying Judaism because I was dating someone who was Jewish. And he wanted to have children, and in the Jewish tradition, children born to a Jewish mother are Jewish. Well, that didn't work out. Years later, I actually returned back to Catholicism because, you guessed it, I was dating a man, and his uncle, not his father, that couldn't be, his uncle was a Catholic priest and was going to marry us, and I had to be going to church if that uncle was going to marry us. I did get married and had a 3-year marriage that I learned a lot about myself and about Catholicism, but it didn't last. Years later again, I think you're getting my drift, I started studying the traditions of the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints, because I was dating someone who was of that faith tradition, and to belong to that community, the only way to move forward was for me to also join that community. I don't know about you. Maybe you've experienced something like this in your search for meaning or for love or for belonging. Maybe you seek comfort in other ways. Maybe you are light years ahead of me in your experience of love that comes from within. For me, though, it took a very long time to figure that out. And so while I learned a great deal about myself and about various religious faith traditions in my search for love, and while I'm grateful for all these experiences, I finally realized I had to be honest with myself. This, my friends, was not the way to find love, nor was it the way to find a spiritual home. This honesty was difficult, because I so craved to feel loved, to be appreciated. I so needed to know that I belonged somewhere, anywhere. I had left my family in Holland, and I was here by myself. And yes, I had friends, but this sense of belonging, this knowing love, was really important. And so while I studied these various religious traditions, as I was studying, I was a part of that community. And yet also, somehow, I don't know, it just didn't feel like home. It didn't feel like family, like what I was really, really deeply longing for. So as I started my new approach to love and relationships, I joined a workshop that was titled, based on a book written by Jane Claypool, it was titled, Wise Women Don't Worry, Wise Women Don't Sing the Blues. I highly recommend it. It's a fascinating book. And in this workshop, I learned about the teachings and the writings of Ernest Holmes. And without a man in my life, just like that, I found my family, my spiritual home. And through this teaching, through the writings of Ernest Holmes, I have learned and continue to learn so much about the commonalities of many of the great religions and the faith traditions. And one of these is love. Jesus taught us to love your neighbor like yourself. I learned that as a kid in Catholic school. And yet, as a questioning and searching, much more mature adult, I became aware that I wasn't very good at loving my neighbor. As a matter of fact, I found it difficult. Being judgmental or disapproving was so much easier. Why can't that person drive faster? Or, Lord, it's a 35-mile speed limit. Why are you going 30? Or, how can you believe this is true? Or, how can you believe this is not true? Do I need to go on? Can you all relate to any of this? Well, it wasn't until a couple of years ago that I had that breakthrough experience to that elusive love, this true, deep, honest love for myself that comes from within. It's a most amazing experience. It still is, always. With all my imperfections, with all my shortcomings, to accept the gift that I am, to accept that I, like all of us, am created in the image and likeness of a divine creator. I cannot put it into words. And in that moment, I realized why it was so difficult to love my neighbor. I had to love myself first. That's why Jesus said, love your neighbor like yourself. I finally got it. That doesn't mean I don't make mistakes, I don't trip up. Even this morning as I was walking over here, a beautiful young person was walking my way, deeply engaged in a text message on a cell phone, and I found myself going, really? Can't you look around you? The beautiful skies, the trees, the glorious day, first day of spring. And I had to stop myself, and I did. And that's the beauty of realizing, of awareness. So anyway, love comes from within. It does. And it was always there. It is always there, waiting for us to open up to it. And so from this deep sense of love, supported by my loving and supportive chosen family here at Elon, at my Center for Spiritual Living, and at a distance from my immediate family in Holland, I finally understood the words in the prayer for peace by St. Francis of Assisi. I won't read the whole thing, I'm going to run out of time, but I wanted to share this. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, in pardoning that we are pardoned, and in dying that we are born to eternal life. Shantideva, an Indian Buddhist sage, puts it in this way in the Bodhisattva prayer for humanity. May I be a guard for those who need protection, a guide for those on the path, a boat, a raft, a bridge for those who wish to cross the flood. May I be a lamp in the darkness, a resting place for the weary, a healing medicine for all who are sick, a vase of plenty, a tree of miracles. And for the boundless multitudes of living beings, may I bring sustenance and awakening, enduring like the earth and the sky, until all beings are freed from sorrow and all are awakened. And so from love, we come to embody compassion. And compassion for me sums up multi-faith understanding. For through compassion, all needs to judge fade away. All sense of us and them, separation, vanishes. When I can love enough to realize that, as Harry Palmer of Star's Edge from the Avatar Workshop teaches us in his compassion exercise, when I can love enough to realize that, just like me, this person is seeking for happiness in his or her life. What that person does or says, or what they look like, is far less meaningful. Mind you, I'm not suggesting that we therefore agree or approve, or merely though that when we're looking through the lens of compassion, we can see beyond the immediately obvious. When I truly know that just like me, this person has known sadness, suffering, despair, what his or her faith tradition is, or that he or she has one at all, somehow is less important. And then I can use those brain cells that were occupied with judging or being right I can use those to then learn more about this person, to dig deeper into that faith tradition. And this, to me, is multi-faith understanding. So next time you find yourself wondering about someone's sanity, or judging their looks, or their beliefs, or their faith tradition, or their lack thereof, next time you find yourself arguing so you can be right, I'd like you to remember these words that are part of a beautiful quote that may or may not be Buddhist in origin. For in the end, this is what matters most. How well have you loved? Namaste.
Thank you so much for your sharing of part of your story and the things that are deep and rooted within you. And thank you for that charge to us all as some of us get ready to depart for a few days next week for spring break to love and be full of compassion towards everyone we come into contact with. 2 weeks from now, we'll gather again for Numen Lumen, a Thursday inspiration, and I'm very excited for our speaker that morning, just like I was this morning. Our speaker in 2 weeks will be Geshe Gelik, who is the Lama at the Kadampa Center for Tibetan Buddhism in Raleigh. So he will be with us, sharing his day here with us at Elon. You can see a little bit more about what he all will be doing on the back of your handout. A couple other things to remind you of. Holi's coming up in a couple of weeks, a Hindu festival of color, where we will throw color on one another out that way. And if any of you students who would be interested in being an intern here in our office next year, applications are currently available. And as always, there's coffee and bananas and donuts and water for us to continue the conversation that was begun here by Johanna.